Carolina, and I want to talk about this book right here. How many of you guys have seen The Nightmare Before Christmas? It's a Disney classic for sure, by Tim Burton. So if you have seen it before, then you know who Sally is. She is the Pumpkin Queen. So the first time that I got the book, or not the first time, but when I got the book, I wasn't really sure what to expect. But I really, really, really wanted to read it. I actually read it in a week because it was that good. And I'm totally gonna ruin it for you. So if you don't want me to ruin it for you, you need to read it first and then come back, right? So basically, it just goes into how she is the pumpkin queen of Halloween Town, and she doesn't really feel like a queen. She doesn't really know who she is. She still feels like she doesn't belong there, and she doesn't understand why. And then when Jack comes into the picture, it's all cute and lovey-dovey, and how much she loves him and how much he loves her. And I love that kind of romance stuff. So it's really cute to me. And so when he's around, she gets all gushy inside and whatever. But when she's not with him, she's just questioning like her worth. She's questioning like what is her purpose in Halloween Town. Like now that she's a queen, she doesn't really feel like she's the queen. But then when she wasn't a queen, she felt like nobody really knew her. Like she didn't really matter. And she goes off one night into the woods to kind of just like run away from like royalty life because it gets to her. And she ends up walking past the holiday trees where you see like the Christmas tree. And if you watch the movie, like you know what I'm talking about, and it's very detailed in the book too. They walk into the forest, and I mean, well, I say they because she's with Zero, the dog, in this point in the forest. um, they pass the holiday trees and they run into a really old holiday tree that's like wrapped up in vines, kind of like hidden in vines. And she, removes all the vines, opens the door, and Zero pulls her arm off because you know how she's like a rag doll and she like can come apart. And Zero takes off running with her arm and she leaves the door open, and then she gets tired. She falls asleep. She wakes up. She goes back to Halloween Town. Everybody's asleep. She doesn't know what's going on. And nobody's waking up. And at first she was kind of enjoying the peace and quiet, but then she realized that nobody was waking up at all, and she started to get worried. And then she wanted answers of what happened, and she saw something going around town like a monster, which is ironic because she's in Halloween Town, right? But like a monster that's like putting everybody to sleep. And then she goes back to the forest because she doesn't know where else to go, and she decides that she's just gonna go into the holidays to see like if she can find any answers. But then when she goes into the holidays, everybody's asleep there too. And I totally just like skipped a whole chunk. So like in the beginning of the book, they're like in their honeymoon, her and Jack, after they had just gotten married, and Jack traveled with her into Valentine holiday, a holiday tree that Jack had specifically saved for them to do it together. And they went into the Valentine tree. The queen there was Queen Ruby, and it was filled with like chocolate covered everything, and um, it was very detailed. It was really fun. But anyways, back to where we were at. Um, she goes into every holiday. Everybody's asleep too, and she's trying to figure out why everybody's asleep. And She goes into the dream, into the door that she had left open, the where the monster had came originally out of. She goes into that tree and goes into a town called Dreamtown, and everybody talks in riddles, and it's really interesting why, but I'll get there. And so she walks inside and they take them to go meet the governor of the town. And when the governors come out, it's like the husband and the wife. When they come out, they're rag dolls too. And they're like shocked to see her. And they're like, oh my God, like this can't be. Their daughter was kidnapped when she was 12 years old, and Sally looked exactly like her. So they looked at her, and realized that that was her daughter. And Sally couldn't believe it. She could, because she didn't remember. It had turned out that she was kidnapped by Dr. Frankenstein when she was 12 years old, and he did something to her, like gave her some kind of like potion or something to erase her memory, so she doesn't remember that she was from there at all. She talks about how Dr. Frankenstein made her believe that she was his creation. So that was really crazy when I got to that part. I didn't expect that. All right. So she finds out, she's in shock. But that's like the least of her worries, right? She's trying to figure out like what's going on in Halloween Town. Like who is that? Like who's the monster and whatnot. So they give her a tour of Dreamtown. There's like sheep. They're like basically the people who focus on putting the humans to sleep. And so they write like melodies, lullabies. There we go, lullabies. Um, and like I said, there was like sheep for like they're like train them to be like the ones you count to help you go to sleep. And there's a factory that makes the dream sand, which is what makes the people go to sleep, but like in small amounts. And but it doesn't work on the residents of Dreamtown. So that's basically who the Sandman was. Like the Sandman was the king of Dreamtown, and he worked overtime. Basically, is how they described it. He worked overtime to the point where he drove himself mad, and he couldn't even go to sleep because the dream sand didn't work on him, right? So then he used the dream sand like in like large quantities. It's supposed to be like concentrated, right? Large quantities to put people to sleep and then steal their nightmares or their dreams, because he couldn't dream, he couldn't sleep. And then so they when the Sandman would go out to the human world to go put people to sleep, the residents would gather around to plan like how they're going to get rid of him. That's why they talked in riddles, because that's the only way they would be able to communicate without the Sandman knowing what they were saying. So one of the times that he goes to the human world, they built like a community gate around the dream town where the residents live. And when the Sandman came back, he was basically kicked out, and he was left to roam the forest. And the tree was wrapped up in vines, so he couldn't get out. He was just stuck in the forest, right? So when that night that Sally took all those vines off and left the door open, and that's how the Sandman had escaped, right? So now she feels guilty. Now she feels like it's her fault, and now she feels responsible to fix it, to fix the whole situation. And so she she keeps asking them like, how can I fix this? And they're like, you can't. Like, there's nothing you could do. The only thing we could do is keep them out to protect our residents by cutting the tree. And now that you're back, we could cut it. We don't need it no more. And he doesn't. And she's like, no. Like, how am I gonna get back to Jack if you cut down the tree? And they trick her into going into her childhood room, and they lock her in there. And then the governors, her parents, and the residents all go down to the forest to get rid of the tree. And she's like desperately trying to get out. There's more details to that, but you just have to read the book, okay? Um, One of the little boy that had taken her to the governors, um, let her out of the room, so she was able to go after everybody to stop them. But by the time she got to the forest, they had already cut it down, and she was just so devastated. Like, why would you do that? You lied to me. Like, I'm supposed to trust you guys because you guys are my parents, and you guys lied to me. And her parents are like, well, there is a way out. If you really want to leave, you could go through the library and then find a cemetery, and then through the cemetery get to Halloween Town. And so Sally then has to make a decision, right? Like, do I leave my parents? Like, I just met my parents again, and now I'm gonna leave them again, because they don't want the Sandman to come back. Like, they really don't. So they basically told her that if she goes through those doors, though, to the library, that she won't be able to come back no more because they're gonna destroy it. Because they don't want the Sandman to have any way of coming back. And Sally's like, well, I'm sorry. Like, I want to go back to Jack. So I guess that's my decision. So then she leaves and she goes through the library, and they tell her just to think of the library that she wants to be at, and that's like bullshit. That's where she will end up. So then she goes through the doors and ends up in the Queen Elizabeth's library, and she kind of gets inspired by her and like about her duties as the Queen of Halloween Town. Then she finds the nearest, and then when she goes through the door, she finds the queen asleep too. So technically, the Sandman had already gone through the human world and had put everybody to sleep. So then she's really feeling like, dang, I really need to fix this. So then she goes through town like no problem because everybody's asleep. She finds a cemetery. She goes through the cemetery to get back to Halloween Town. She manages to get through Halloween Town without being seen by the Sandman. She goes back to the lab where Dr. Frankenstein used to live, or where he lives, right? And she gets like the herbs that she needs to create the potion. So she's basically like a potion maker. Like that's what they do in Dreamtown too. Like they put like these potions together, um, to put people to sleep, right? So, but she makes them like for different things in Halloween Town. So she makes a potion to like try to put the Sandman into like a deadly sleep, right? So she makes it, and then she makes a plan. She makes all these rag dolls that look like her to like place them all around Halloween Town to trick the Sandman into a trap. When the Sandman gets close to her, she like drops the potion into the fountain, like the big fountain, like you know what I mean. Like if you've watched The Nightmare Before Christmas, like the fountain where Jack comes from, out of during one of the Halloween Eve celebrations, right? She drops the potion in there, and she thinks that her plan failed, but then somehow Zero comes around, and like he falls into the fountain and he falls asleep, and then everybody slowly starts to wake up and um, start celebrating, deciding like what they're gonna do with the Sandman's body. The people from Halloween Town, the residents, they were like, we're gonna throw him over a cliff. They just didn't want to have any chances of him coming back. And as they're talking about it, he starts to slowly wake up. And then he wakes up and he's like yawning and stretching, like he just woke up. And he's like a completely different person. It turned out that he just needed a nap. That he just needed a nap. And he was like, wow, is this what it feels like to get a good night's sleep? And he was like a completely different person. And then everybody kind of just like washes it off and acts like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad we got that. We got that situated. And then Jack's like, okay, Dr. Frankenstein, don't think you're going to get away with what you did. And they punish him by making him work in Dreamtown. Um, and Sally, uh, technically ends up saving the day. And then, like, during that time, like, where they were talking, even the parents show up. Um, because they had felt guilty about letting Sally go on her own to try to figure it out. So when she had just defeated Sandman, they like showed up out of nowhere. Like they literally went out of their comfort zone to go through the library, to go through the cemetery, to come back to Halloween Town, to come back for their daughter. And then Sally ended up realizing her value as the queen of Halloween Town, even became an advocate of all the holiday towns and got them to all um, become like visitors, like let them like come visit Halloween Town. Like they visited each other's towns and became like a community and talked together. And it was a really good book. It was a really good book. I really liked it. I would really recommend. I'm probably like the worst person to describe it, but I was really excited to read it. Like it was well written, and I was able to picture the way they described all the characters, the boogie boys, the vampire, the witches, Valentine Town. I think she went into every holiday town. Easter, and she described the rabbits, the fields, the clover, and there was like a leprechaun. He was the only one that wasn't asleep in St. Patrick's Town, and she gave him the like a lucky clover. She even used the lucky clover as part of her potion. Everything. It was a great book, and I would definitely recommend you guys to read it. But definitely read it, and I want to know if you guys think the same, or if there's anything I missed that you guys um, think that is important. Definitely let me know, because that would be like really exciting to talk about, like a book club. So let me know. Thanks.